Today, running down my top 10 most wanted albums. Any of these on your list? Let me know after you watch this video. Hi, my name is Frank. Welcome back to Sundays on channel 33 RPM, your channel for vinyl, gear, and more. I did a video like 2 years ago with my most wanted albums, and luckily I've been able to purchase many of those or acquire many of those on that list, so I thought it'd be time to update this, and what the heck, I would do a video about it. The funny thing is, last time I did a video, a lot of people were like,
"Oh man, how can that possibly be a most wanted album? That album sucks."
It's really funny because these most wanted album lists are such a personal thing. I mean, just because it's one of my most wanted albums doesn't mean it has to be one of yours, and very likely it is not one of yours. That said, check these out and then let me know in the comments below this video what your most wanted album or what some of your most wanted albums are. This is always kind of a fun game to play. I think most of mine on my list are achievable. I just kind of got to do a plan to buy them. As I said, I've said in previous videos, I've sort of scaled back on my purchases, but maybe with some of those savings, I'm thinking I can put it in a pot and purchase some of these records which cost more, but in the long run, I think would mean more to me. Anyway, check out this list and let me know what you think.
Channel 33 RPM.
Okay, the first one, this is something kind of new to me, which I just discovered. It's this band called Necromandus, which I may be mispronouncing, but on my want list is their album. I may be mispronouncing this as well, but the album is Orexis of Death. These guys, just reading online here, were an English rock band formed in 1970 and discovered by Mr. Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath in 72. They recorded one album in 73 and split up, and that album was not released until 1999. Tony Iommi produced this album. He added some guitar to the title track, and Ozzy Osbourne, years later, initially wanted to use Necromandus' guitarist, bassist, and drummers for the Blizzard of Oz, which was the lineup that recorded Ozzy's debut album. So I mean, the pedigree is there. These guys were they just never caught on for whatever reason. But this album is great, and I would love to get a copy of this on vinyl, even CD. I just want to have this album in my collection. All right, what next is on my list? I've actually created on my Discogs page my most wanted albums so I can keep better track of them. Next on the list, okay, we have Quiet Riot 1 or Quiet Riot 2. I don't have either. It seems like Quiet Riot 2 would be easier to obtain. So the history of this is before Quiet Riot was Quiet Riot and broke worldwide with their 1983 album Metal Health. They were this small-ish band, I guess, from Los Angeles, and they recorded a couple albums for the Japanese market only. Randy Rhoads, who later went on to Ozzy Osbourne fame, was their guitarist, and I would love to have one of these albums. The album artwork for Quiet Riot 2 is super goofy, but these go still for about $100. There's various bootlegs out there, but you know, you need the Japanese original for sure. As an original recording of Slick Black Cadillac, which was later re-recorded on Metal Health. Anyway, it's sort of for the historical value almost of this. It was kind of Randy Rhoads' humble beginnings, and of course he went on to record these two epic albums with Ozzy's band. But I would love Quiet Riot 1, but most likely Quiet Riot 2 for the collection. Okay, next up, this is another album I've only recently discovered and absolutely fallen in love with, and I have a repress of it, but it is Elf's album called LA 59. It is also known as the Carolina County Ball, and this was Elf. There's weird noises going on outside now. I think Sherry is now watering the garden. Anyway, Elf featured Ronnie James Dio on lead vocals. The reissue sounds fine, but I'd love to get an original or an older pressing of this. I've got my eye in particular on the Japanese release. It goes for about $60, which is attainable. And as I said, this album just it's phenomenal from beginning to end. If you're not familiar with Elf and this particular record, you do have to check it out. And I can only imagine the Japanese pressing is fantastic. Okay, this next one has been on my want list before, and I've pretty much resigned myself to the fact that I'm never going to get it. But the album is Van Halen Balance, originally released in 1995. It was never reissued on vinyl. It was the 90s, so vinyl at that time was issued in such limited quantities. And I'm kicking myself over this one. I've said this story before, but about 4 years ago at a record store in Edmonton, I saw a still sealed copy of this record for $50 Canadian, which is like $35 US. I passed on it, then I kicked myself, went back to buy it, and of course it was gone. Now the value, they're like $300, $200. I'm not going to pay that much for this. The CD sounds just fine, but if I ever found a deal on this one again, I would not hesitate. It's a hard lesson learned, and I think we've all learned it. When you see that record you want, don't hesitate, buy it, because it will be gone when you go back, but I will keep it on my wish list, at least for now. All right, another one I've always wanted is Jimi Hendrix Experience Electric Ladyland. I do have that album in my collection, but I want the lady cover of this album, if you know what I mean. And it was just such a unique album cover. I got it on my, as I said, on my Discogs release page. And I'm not picky, like I don't think I'd get an original press of it. Japanese would be cool. UK would be cool. Again, doesn't have to be an original press, but there's something about the UK version of it. You can get an older reissue, you know, 50, 60, 70 bucks. Great album, and I think this particular version I want for the collection. Okay, here's one. I've mentioned this one before, and it's still on my list. That is Fight, War of Words. And Fight was Rob Halford's first project after he left Judas Priest in the early 90s, and War of Words was the band's first release in 1993. I got it the week of release. I'm a huge Halford fan. He's probably my favorite heavy metal singer of all time. And this was released on Record Store Day, or Record Store Day Black Friday in 2019, but it never made its way to Canada. I almost bought a version from the US because you still can find it. It's usually about $30 US, but then shipping is like usually another $20, so it's $50 US, and then transfer that to Canadian dollars is like 65. I'm thinking, is that worth it for a reissue? So I looked more into this, and there's actually original pressings available. There was a Spanish pressing, and there was a pressing from the Netherlands, and I'm going to go for this. If I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'm figuring I should get an original. I'd just love to hear from someone who has heard the original. Let me know if it's worth it and what it sounds like. But for the time being, that's definitely going to stay on my most wanted list. Here's another one that I let slip through my fingers. Motley Crue, Too Fast for Love. This was their debut album. Initially, they released it independently on their own label called Leather Records. There's a first pressing, a second pressing, and a third pressing on leather. I love this album. It's so raw sounding, and it's just, I think it's one of the Crue's best. I was at the record show in Fargo, North Dakota a year or two back, and they had a third pressing for $100, and I let it go. And now I'm looking on Discogs, and even that third pressing, how much is this going for? It's going for too much. Like over $200. So I don't see myself acquiring this anytime soon, but I should have grabbed it. The cool thing is, the first Canadian issue of Too Fast for Love is actually the original leather press, and I do have one of those, a promo copy, and those are also very hard to come by, but to have it on the original leather imprint I think would be cool. Again, it's gonna be hard to find. I'm not willing to shell out those kind of bucks, but I still hold out hope. Okay, this next one, many of you outside of Canada may not be familiar with it. It's the 1998 release from Canadian alternative rock band Sloane. It's called Navy Blues, and came out on their own imprint called Murder Records. This is a kick-ass album from beginning to end. Great 90s rock. And I bought the CD like back 20 years ago, and it's only recently I learned that this was actually originally also released on vinyl. It goes for about 60, 70, $80. There's a Canadian press and a Japanese one. So I'd love to get an original. It was also reissued a couple years back. That one is more attainable in terms of price. So if you haven't heard Sloane Navy Blues, straight up rock. I mean, they're lumped into that alternative rock and power pop and indie rock, but this album is straight up rock, and I highly recommend you checking it out. Another one I've been eyeing for a while from one of my favorite bands, I'm a bit of a completist, is Judas Priest Metalworks 73 to 93. This was 20-year retrospective best of. I have the CD. I got the 2 cassette one, but it's only last year I learned it was actually released on vinyl in parts of Europe and parts of South America. You know, it's still reasonably priced. I think it's a very good compilation. And again, I have all the Halford era Priest albums. I just need this one to complete the collection, and that completist in me tells me I gotta buy it. So I'm keeping close tabs on this one. I think this might be one of the first ones I jump on, and when I do, I will let you guys know. Here's one for another one of my favorite artists, Ozzy Osbourne, Speak of the Devil, which I own that one. It was called Speak of the Devil in North America. It's a live album released in 1982, solely of Black Sabbath cover songs. There's a long history behind that album and why he did it, which I won't get into in this video, but I've always loved these covers. This album was actually my introduction as a kid to these Black Sabbath songs. But I want to get a different version of this one. I want to get Talk of the Devil. It was called Talk of the Devil, I believe just in the UK, and sort of speaks to the different forms of expression we have. The expression here is Speak of the Devil. Obviously in the UK, it's Talk of the Devil. So again, the completist in me, I love Oz, particularly his 1980s catalog. So I would love to grab this version of this album, Talk of the Devil. And again, another artist I'm a huge fan of, and I'm so close to completing the collection. I'm talking about Alice Cooper. The only one of his studio albums I still need is his 2008 release, Along Came a Spider. There's a couple of variations on the cover art for this one, but I love the way this one looks, and I should have bought it when it was available and reasonably priced. But I got my eye on the German pressing here, clear vinyl. Completist in me tells me I gotta get it, so this one is definitely on my want list. And finally, for good measure, a couple more Motley Crue albums from Argentina. The Argentinian versions of Girls, Girls, Girls and Shout at the Devil. Girls, Girls, Girls is called Chicas, Chicas, Chicas. And I just think these are cool variations when the album titles and the song titles are in Spanish. These aren't high up on my want list, but they're definitely on my want list just because I think they're both cool variations. So I'll keep tabs on these, and if I come across one for a good price, I will buy either of these Argentinian pressings. Again, Girls, 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 Chicas, 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 or the Argentinian version of Shout at the Devil. All right, 33ers, that's my current top 10-ish list of my most wanted albums. What do you think? What are your most wanted albums? What are you doing to acquire your most wanted albums? Do you have a plan? I'm sort of developing a plan here, so I wish all of us the best of luck in getting what we're after. Remember, if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a quick thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Otherwise, dear 33ers, stay well. Until next time, keep on spinning.